Welcome into Dialed In, everybody. It's not your usual face on the screen. That's because my father, who some would call a boomer, can't figure out Wi-Fi his phone. I actually don't think is entirely his fault this time. It sounds like something's going on in Cincinnati, but I'm here in Bloomington. Casey's there in Hamilton, Ohio, and there's plenty to talk about. Casey, obviously it is the week where David Bell lost his job as a Cincinnati Reds manager. There is some big-time games this weekend, obviously, in the NFL, but we have Bama, Georgia in college football, which is arguably the game of the year. So, no Tom, but hey, we're not going to go no show. And Casey, I'll just open it up. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Luke. Doing real good. Don't know what's going on with the Marty Wi-Fi over at Tom's house, but I'm sure if he's hearing this right now, I'm going to send him another link just in case he can come on again. Maybe it ends up working out, but check his email if not. Luke, Bengals are 0-3. The Reds, they're looking for a new manager. Cincinnati sports in general, just down the tank. What are your thoughts right now on the Bengals?
I don't know, Casey. I mean, let's just reverse to a year ago when the Bengals obviously didn't have a good start, but you just look at the position of where the city is when it comes to sports, because not having an NBA team really makes this two-dimensional, where the Reds season comes to an end because they never play postseason baseball, and the Bengals season kind of picks up everyone's sorrow and sadness. I feel like last year, I always refer back to that huge win streak, the Reds, when they won double-digit games. But I feel like the season ended almost on a good note. It's like we had some injuries, but this future is really bright. You had the emergence of Ellie De La Cruz, and you couldn't be in more of a polar opposite of just shambles right now when it comes to the Reds. Who's going to be the next manager? That's something I think you and I should talk about, throw some names out there. And then you flip the page to the Bengals. They've really been the saving grace of this city for a city that has struggled so much over the past decade or two when it comes to sports and even playoff appearances, not even championships. For them to start 0-3, I have hit the panic button. I think the schedule gives them leeway there is a possible comeback. We know the numbers. We've seen it all over social media. It's like a 2% chance that a team who starts 0-3 makes the postseason, let alone competes for a Super Bowl. And it's a new position. They are an underdog at this point. They have to take that mentality and pretty much give it to everybody, because if you can't beat the Patriots and the Commanders, then you certainly should not look over the Carolina Panthers and a 4.5-point spread on the road, especially going up against the Red Rifle.
Absolutely. I mean, I am so nervous about this game coming up against the Panthers, Luke. We currently have an injury for Jamar Chase. That's a thing. We have illness with Trey Hendrickson, so our two top star talented players on our team, not naming Joe Burrow, potentially not being there against the Panthers. It couldn't get much worse. It really could not get much worse as a Cincinnati fan in general. I mean, all that being said, though, there is one shining hope, and I mentioned him earlier. Joe Burrow gives you that chance to be 1-3. Like, just remove the idea of being 0-3. Let's just go 1-0 this week, right? That's what you have to believe as a team in general. You just got to go 1-0 and start stacking wins, because at some point, if you don't start stacking wins, you're just going to be completely left behind.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to the Bengals season. When you are up there in the Super Bowl favorites and contention, it comes down to, are you going to take it week by week, or are you going to take the broad approach? And if you look at the really dominant teams over the past couple of years, it really does feel like the Chiefs take it week by week. They never overlook anybody. Yeah, they're going to get upset here and there. Their divisional games have been a lot easier than the Bengals the last couple of seasons. But I think this season, especially Bengals fans, including myself, I'm guilty of it. It's like you look over the start of the season, and the only game you circled was Kansas City, And we're sitting here through 3 weeks, and we're 0-3, and the best game they played was against the Chiefs. It's their closest game of the season against the two-time back-to-back Super Bowl champs. So I don't really know. I'm at a loss for words. I'd love to hear what the chat thinks about it. Obviously, the question of do we hit the panic button isn't really in jeopardy anymore. Everyone should be hitting the panic button. But like you said, they have the players. They've been here before. They've started slow. You beat the Panthers. You win a big divisional game. You're 2-3, and you play arguably one of the worst teams in football in the New York Giants, depending on what they show us tonight against the Cowboys on primetime. And then you say, hey, let's reset. So it's almost like blocks at a time. Let's get back to 500. Let's win a divisional game, and then we go. Because this team does have the offensive firepower and talent to really make something. But this start is about as disastrous as it gets.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I see a lot of people saying already pack it up. Sit Chase, sit T, sit Burrow. That's just not going to happen. When they're not mathematically eliminated, this team will always continue to try and make it to the playoffs. Now, a team that I feel like kind of packed it in pretty early, the Reds, whether or not they were trying to or if they just don't have the talent on the roster, they're going to be in some weird limbo. I guess they're actually not that weird of a limbo. I mean, they're ahead of the schedule trying to find a manager. I don't know what to make of it. Because, one, I'm not the biggest baseball fan. I hear a lot of names thrown out. But all I know, Luke, is we really, really, really need someone to hold these guys accountable, to really be able to develop these players. I thought that David Bell got them to a certain point, and he had reached his ceiling, I would say. I mean, his ceiling was getting this team close to the playoffs, a wild card team. Clearly, he gave this team 3 winning seasons. I think he had done enough up to this point. I think it was time to move on. Is there what is your ideal general manager at this moment for this Cincinnati Reds team? Is it an older guy? Is it a younger guy, a player's coach? What are you looking for with the Cincinnati team?
I don't know. I think this is a really good question because if you look at David Bell and everything that even the players have said about Bell and his managing style, and even like when Chris Welsh and Sadak went on coming off his firing on their first appearance, it's all about how nice of a guy he is, how kind he is, how he lets the players manage the team and dictate stuff. And then you start hearing these guys talk, and they're using the word accountable. Who's being held accountable? Who's not doing their role? And I loved Trace's rant last night on Chatterbox Reds, or maybe 2 nights ago. He's like, I'm tired of hearing from these players who have done nothing. You are bounced in the COVID-shortened season after not scoring a run in a wild card game. You have never sniffed winning baseball outside of a couple hot streaks with a young lineup that caught fire. There's really nothing going for the Cincinnati Reds team. So I think when you look at a manager side, you almost have to take the complete opposite of approach. You look at a guy like Skip Schumacher. So he's younger, but certainly tough-nosed, is going to hold you accountable. We saw that multiple times in Miami this season through that awful season they have had down there where he's pulled guys through the game mid-game and benched them for not hustling. So stuff like that could be a good change. I do like Skip. I think he'd be a decent fit. And then you could go all the way to a really older guy like, say, a Terry Francona, a Joe Girardi. And then that's when you have to start talking, how much are we going to pay a manager to manage the Cincinnati Reds? Because the Brewers, they let Craig Counsell go last season. He goes to Chicago, makes a Brinks truck of money. They don't make the playoffs, kind of don't even sniff it outside of that little push they had at the start of September. And guy steps in for the Brewers. They win the division, do what they've done pretty much every year. So it's a tough game because there is like that dimension of, do baseball managers really matter that much? So are you going to pay someone? Are you going to go young, old? I guess we'll see. But my personal take, I'm going to go with Skip just because what he did with the Marlins 2 years ago when they made the playoff with that roster is, I think, exactly what Cincinnati needs and wants.
Yeah, I've seen Terry Francona as another guy, someone that is a little, older, but has a lot of great experience with the being a baseball manager. He played with the team for 1 year. I see like Barry Larkin as a candidate as well. I'm just waiting for there to be the perfect general manager prospect. I don't know if that name is currently out there. I think the closest one is probably Francona or Skip Schumacher. But as of this moment, yeah, I'm still waiting on that guy at the moment. The chat here, I'm just waiting on him to get back into the link here, and we'll get him on the show. Luke, do you want to move on to college football?
Yeah, that's totally fine with me. I think I hit on it at the start of the show. When you
Here's
look
Tom.
at the big
Here's Tom.
picture of this week, as we'll bring in my dad here. Is he here?
Yep, he's here.
Sorry, fellas, I don't know what's going on around here. I thought the Wi-Fi was out. It says it was working, and now we're just working off the old telephone. So please forgive me. You guys did a great job there. Where are we, Lukey? Bring me up to speed.
We just kind of coded over the Reds manager and what's going on in that nightmare of an organization right now. But I think we're turning the page now to college football because this is a huge weekend. There's a couple ranked unranked matchups, but when you look at Bama, Georgia, this is the first blockbuster game I think we've had of the season. Yeah, there was Notre Dame A&M on opening weekend, but this is the game of the year, especially down south, and should be everywhere. Whoever comes out of this game, I think, is going to be the consensus best team in the country. You can obviously make that argument for Texas, but just some initial thoughts out of you guys, because this is the first time that it's going to be a Bama home game, if it's Georgia or whoever else is in the top 5, top 3, without Nick Saban. Do you guys think that'll play a big role?
I don't think it'll play a role at all. I think they've got a great head coach. And DeBoer is on his game. Now, clearly, this is a big step going from the Pac-12, where he played some big games last year. There's no question about that. And he won big games last year. I mean, remember, when they got down near the end and had to play Oregon in the championship game of the Pac-12, Washington beat Oregon. So, this guy knows how to get his team ready. They won the college football playoff semifinal a year ago. Yeah, now he's in Alabama. It's like religion down there. He will have Alabama ready to play down there. There's no doubt in my mind at all. You?
I think that there's going to be no difference either, and we'll talk about it when we get into the picks. And honestly, if it's cool with you guys, I say we just jump right into picking these games.
All right, cool.
All right, first one is going to be Oklahoma State versus Kansas State, a ranked-on-ranked matchup. If you take Oklahoma State, they're coming off a tough loss. They hosted Utah last weekend, could get nothing going offensively until the end of that game. They end up losing, and I think Utah beat them up a little worse than that, single-digit number on the scoreboard. However, Kansas State gets beat by BYU 38-7, just ridiculous blowout, but they're at home and they're favored by 5. I'm going to go with Kansas State. It's kind of an ugly game. Both teams coming off a loss, yet they're still ranked, but I'll take K-State.
Casey, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go, Tom. I was looking at your guys' picks, and I was having a hard time deciding what teams I was going to pick here. I like both teams a lot. I think Oklahoma State, they put up a decent fight against Utah. Not what I expected, though. Kansas State, on the other hand, they got blown out by BYU. It was ugly. It was disastrous. And that really just kind of shakes my perception of Kansas State. It's weird to me that they're getting 5 here. So that's why I'm going to be taking Oklahoma State. I just feel like you look at the last performances from both these teams, I think Oklahoma State put up a better game. And Kansas State, they just let a game get really out of hand, and they looked really bad. So I'm going with Oklahoma State.
I'm taking Kansas State here. Oklahoma State, I've never bought into them. They had a chance on their home turf last week to make a major league statement. And as I predicted anyway, Utah came in there and just hammered them. You're right. I think BYU is a lot better than people think. I mean, BYU is now beaten SMU and beaten Kansas State. So I keep an eye out on BYU. But I'm going with Kansas State in this one.
All right, let's move on. Next game, and this is a heck of a game. This could be game of the week if we didn't have a Bama-Georgia game, and this is Louisville versus Notre Dame. I think it's number
Yeah.
15 versus number 16 in this matchup. That's correct. Notre Dame's getting 6 and a hook at home. I think it's a fair line, but I look at this Louisville program as a little bit similar to what that Cinderella run from the University of Cincinnati Bearcats was a couple years ago. And if you don't forget, UC came in to Notre Dame Stadium and they beat the Irish. I don't even want the 6.5. You can leave that in Louisville. I'm going with the Cardinals. I think they go into ND and beat them. I think Louisville is a college football playoff caliber team. I really do stand on that, and this is the week for them to prove it.
Well, I'm with you on Louisville. I think they're I think Jeff Brom is an outstanding coach. And look, they got all the resources in the world there. They get overlooked a lot. But there's a lot of money. There's a lot going on there at Louisville. It's like their pro team. Now, going to Notre Dame is not easy, but when you give me those kind of points, 6.5 points, I'm taking Louisville.
Yeah, Tom, I am also taking Louisville as well. I just feel like I've seen this song and dance before. I've seen Notre Dame be favored against Louisville and just absolutely get demolished by them. And they have the better quarterback at the moment. Notre Dame's quarterback situation is abysmal. I like Louisville. I like them to win. So I'm with Luke on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really good game, though. And speaking of good games, we've talked about it pretty much enough already. It's Bama, Georgia. It's number 2 versus number 4. I mean, this is as good as it gets. This is Bama at home without Saban. We touched on that. Georgia trying to get back on the saddle after not even making the college football playoff because Alabama beat them in the SEC championship. So much going on. There's a lot of redemption stories. Georgia, obviously, with Carson Beck, still with Kirby Smart. Bama, it's Jalen Milroe trying to make his Heisman race. And, guys, I'm pretty confident about this one. I really think that Bama just defends home field. It's going to be what it is. It's SEC football, a top 5 ranked matchup. It's going to be a game in the trenches, and it's going to come down to who can make the big play. There's so many speedy receivers on this team. Both defenses are so physical and stout. Who's going to bust one open? And I think that is Bama. They're so fast. They've looked so good, and I don't think they've missed a beat without Nick Saban. Give me Bama. When you can keep the points at home, too. They win this game outright.
Ooh.
Casey?
Yeah, I just think out of all these teams, who's going to have the better defense, right? Who's going to limit the big plays? And that's going to be Georgia. I mean, Georgia, up until this point, has not lost a regular season football game for the last, 40 games or something like that. They are ridiculous. I love Georgia in this one. Give me the 2 points, -2 here for Georgia.
Okay, I'm going to take the Crimson Tide of Alabama. They're at home. I think, look, both of these teams are loaded with nothing but 4 and 5 star recruits. Both of these coaches are great at their jobs. I just think being at home is a difference for Alabama.
Oh, Luke, we lost your mic, Luke.
Oh, sorry. Am I back?
Yep, you're back.
Just a mute. But before we move on to the pro games, I do want to recap a little bit of last week. So Casey went 5-3, or excuse me, Casey went 4-4, but he's still number 1 in the standings at 12-12. So 50% for Casey. My dad and I are coming off profitable weeks of 5-3. My dad is now in second, or excuse me, my dad is in first at 13-11.
Yes.
Casey's 12-12, and I'm 11-13. So it has gotten tight. I started 0-7, guys, so I feel like I do have a little momentum in the back of the bus. But nonetheless, if you're over 50% picking games through 3 weeks, you're pretty good at it. And right now, that's the old man. So congratulations.
Yep. Thank you for the props.
We can code over Thursday Night Football pretty quick. And after the Giants beat the Browns, this is kind of a football game now. It's the Cowboys and the Giants. The spread's 4.5. I would have thought it would be a little higher, and I'm not going to waste time here. I'm going to take the 4.5 with the G-Men. It's super ugly. It's super weird, but it's MetLife. It's prime time, and they're coming off a big win. I am a Daniel Jones guy. I hate to say it, but I don't know if they win this game, but I'll take the points.
Casey?
Ooh, Tom, I am also taking the G-Men. I saw what they did to a Cleveland Browns team. I saw what they did to a Washington Commanders team. I'm starting to believe in some of these teams offensively, and I'm really starting to believe in what the G-Men are doing defensively. They get after the quarterback. They've got guys on that defensive line that just tear you apart. And I saw what happened with the Cowboys. When they get under duress, when they get under fire, Dak Prescott folds. So give me the plus 4.5. I don't know if they're going to win because I don't know if Daniel Jones is going to be able to score a bunch of points. But I do think that this game is a lot closer than what people think. And the spread suggests that. So give me the Giants plus 4.5.
Okay, I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys. I think that they were brutal, beyond brutal last week. And look, that comes as no surprise for anybody who's followed the Cowboys for a long, long time. They can't win the big one, but I still think that they will go to New York and play well. I don't think the Giants can score. Yes, they get after the quarterback, but I don't think they can score with Dallas. I think Dallas is motivated to play well this week. So I take the Cowboys and give you 4.5.
All right, Casey and I on the G-Men. I really do think that game is dependent on the turnover battle. If the Giants can turn over the Cowboys 1-2 times, they win and cover that game. But if not, kind of to my dad's point, they'll just outlast them. Let's go to the Bengals now on Sunday. They play the Panthers. The spread's 4.5. The spread opened up at 7. The interesting thing about football spreads is you can see them way in advance. So an 0-3 start has a spread all the way down to 4.5. I'm sure Andy Dalton playing instead of Bryce Young has affected the line too. Nonetheless, another scary spot here for the Bengals, and there's no way I can lay points right now with Cincinnati, especially against Andy Dalton. I'm just going to say it, guys. I see the storylines written all over this football game. It's so ugly. I have to take the Panthers for the sake of my record. I mean, my picks have been under 500, so maybe I'm doing the Bengals a favor and giving them a big win right now, and I would love that, but I can't. I have to take the points here, especially at home.
Yeah, Luke, I see the storylines too, and it's about a team that's trying to turn their season around. The Bengals have to get it. They have to get a win here. They have to win, and I think if they're going to win, I think they're going to do it convincingly. I don't think they're going to do another close game. I do think that there's going to be a lot of points scored, but I do think the defense gets a couple more stops than what they did on Monday night, which was 0 stops. So give me the Bengals minus 4.5 here. Give me the win.
Well, this is the season. I mean, this is the season. The Panthers didn't start the season thinking they were going to be a playoff contender. And whether they end up being or not remains to be seen. If Dalton plays great, who knows? He's taken a lot of Bengals teams to the playoffs. But this is the season for the Bengals. They lose this game and they're done. And I said all along, even after last week, they got 14 games left. The season is not over. They lose this game, they're DUN. They will show up, cover the 4.5. Bengals roll in Charlotte.
All right, I guess I am the minority there with the Bengals pick, or with the Panthers pick. This is a really good game. Vikings-Packers. The games continue to get better even from here on out in the NFL. But I thought it was really interesting. I was almost going to swap this and we could pick Eagles-Buccaneers, but for some reason, this undefeated Vikings team, boy, they are resilient. They're doing their thing, and it's all Sam Darnold. Interesting how that works. How, if you look at all these high draft picks and quarterbacks who never really got a second, third, even fourth chance for a guy like Darnold, what they can do. And I know this is just 3 weeks of the season, but they head to Lambeau without Jordan Love, and they're 2.5-point underdogs. I'll let someone else go first. What do you guys think about this one?
Well, I mean, look, Luke, you were the guy that said you thought if Darnold got a chance, he would have a chance. I've never been a big Darnold guy. You go back to college, he turned the ball over all the time. Now, it wasn't his fault he got drafted by the Jets in that mess of a situation, but when he's had a chance to play, he's not played well. But now, a little older, a little wiser, a little more mature, better players, clearly better offensive line around him, good skill position players around him. He has been really good. I'm taking Minnesota in this game. Even though it's at Green Bay, I think Minnesota's got it going on.
Yeah, I really, really like what Minnesota's doing so far. I've kind of am in the same camp with Luke that if Darnold was given a chance that he would have a pretty good opportunity. And the Vikings, their offense, man, when they're all healthy, they're pretty explosive at the moment. Their defense is underrated. Brian Flores, I mean, he just dials up the blitz pressures and packages, and it matters. It matters. I'm going with Vikings here. I'm going with Vikings. Give me plus 2.5 points here. It's going to be a great game. This is going to be a fantastic game.
Yeah, I think this is it has the makings to be what it is. It's a divisional, gritty, early season NFC game between two good teams. And after reading a little more up on it, it does look like the reports right now say that Jordan Love is close to going. So I think he's going to take the field. He's going to lace up his cleats. If he doesn't go, this line probably gets inflated to 4.5, maybe 5.5. However, with that being said, the fact that Vegas doesn't know, maybe they do know he's going to go. And with that being said, the line is what it is. The Packers are favored in this game, and I'm going to take them. I think that their defense, their home field advantage, they're tough to beat. It's Minnesota's not first real test because they took care of business at home against a really good Texans team. However, divisional games, they're gritty, they're in the trenches, and the Packers win this one.
Yep.
All right. Two more games, and this is an interesting line when we start talking about that. The Chiefs and the Chargers. So the undefeated Chiefs go to SoFi to play the Chargers, who were a couple missed offensive opportunities away, probably an injured Justin Herbert away from being 3-0 as well. They lost last week on the road, but they're back home in an 8-point number in a divisional game. This is insane to me, guys. That just makes me say, I'm not thinking about the game, I'm not thinking of the matchup. Give me the Chiefs. They're getting respected this much, and you got to give them their respect. They haven't even played a game where they have a convincing win yet this season. So all the consensus goes to say to take the 8. However, I kind of see the Chiefs just dominating the Chargers, an offensive explosion in SoFi. So I'll lay the 8.
Well, if Herbert was healthy, I would take the points and the Chargers because I think they're going to run the ball at Kansas City and run and run and run and run. But you got to have somebody who can sling it around. Herbert looks like he's 50% at best, if you believe all the things that are being written about him. So I'm going to take Kansas City as well.
All right. Yeah, I really think that this line plus 8, any line that's more than a touchdown in the NFL is crazy. But it's the Chiefs. It's the Chiefs, and I can't bet against the Chiefs. They just always seem to get it done. So give me the Chiefs plus 8.
All right. And that brings us to Sunday Night Football to wrap us up. This is a heck of a game in the AFC. I'm jealous that the Bengals aren't here, but they haven't earned to be here. So it's the Bills and the Ravens. The spread's 2.5. The Ravens are home favorites. So you could make the argument that the Bills are playing the best football in all of football right now, and they find themselves as a 2.5-point underdog on the road. Casey, take it away.
Ooh, yeah, Luke, I think when I was doing my research on this game, I think the Josh Allen and Lamar are tied if you include the playoffs. Josh Allen being 1-0 in the playoffs versus Lamar, and Lamar having 2-1 record against the Bills in his career. I really, really just like what Josh Allen is doing with a team that isn't dependent on a star wide receiver. They're able to spread the ball out, really and truly be able to run the ball like they haven't been able to throughout Josh Allen's career. And for some reason, this defense, when they lost all their star secondary players, they just managed to reload. Damar Hamlin looks really good out there at safety. He's got a pick on the year. I mean, it's just the Bills and Josh Allen look really, really good to start the year, whereas the Ravens, they've really given up some leads here. They lost to the Raiders when they were up. They almost lost to the Dallas Cowboys there at the end. They were giving up their giant lead that they had on them. I like the Bills in this one. Give me plus 2.5 Bills.
Oh, this is a tough one for me. I'm all about home teams, but the Bills are playing so good. I mean, watching that game I mean, they just win in convincing fashion, which just feels like it has to be so easy to take the Bills here. But now I think it's Harbaugh, it's the Ravens in Baltimore, Sunday Night Football. I feel like this is one of those games that Baltimore's able to slow down and play at such a controlled pace where even on our doc where we talk about these games and plan the show, I actually do have the Bills. But I almost want to change my pick. I did it last week on Thursday Night Football, and it ended up losing because I took the Pats instead of the Jets at the last minute. I think I have to take the Ravens because that's what my gut's telling me. I don't know if Casey could throw the graphic up there because they are pre-playing. Oh, he's got me. But nonetheless, that looks better. I'm more confident in that pick. The week has progressed, and maybe it's a sucker pick, but I'm going to go with the home team in primetime.
All right, I'm with you, Luke. I'm taking Baltimore. I mean, I wrestled with this one big time, but at the end of the day, Baltimore in prime time at home, they generally play very, very, very well. And so I would suspect that they're going to even their record at 2-2 on the year and cover the 2.5. You got to get to class. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I do. I'll let you guys close it out.
Okay. All right, Luke, thanks. Thanks for being patient today. And have a good rest of your day. And good luck to Indiana football this weekend.
Yeah, big weekend for them. Thank you, guys. And thanks for everyone in the chat for bearing with us. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. We finally have a concrete schedule here, so that gives us the ability to recap.
No. Back up now. Back up a second. Tuesday.
Oh, sorry, Monday and Thursday is what we are moving forward, correct?
Right. Now, you will not be here on Mondays, or will you at 9 o'clock?
I can do the 20 minutes to start the show, but Thursday's the pick-em show. So we are on a consistent thing here. Sorry about the technical difficulties today, but you guys have a good one, and I'll talk to you over the weekend.
All right, buddy. Love you. Have a good rest of your day. You know, I want to follow up a couple thoughts, Casey, real quick on this Reds manager thing. Not that it's uber important today because I don't think they're going to fill that spot between now and Monday. I just don't see that happening. Now there are candidates out there where you can certainly start, working on interviews ASAP, especially some of the names we've talked about with Joe Madden, Terry Francona, Joe Girardi. Those guys are clearly not managing major league teams right now. So you could start the conversation with them. But you're not allowed to with Schumacher. He's under contract until the games are over on Sunday. I really feel like this team reminds me a lot, though not as talented, not nearly as talented. But for those old enough to remember when Pete Rose was managing the Reds, and you had this influx of young players, incredibly talented players. You had Larkin, you had Eric Davis, you had Cal Daniels, you had Chris Sabo, you had Paul O'Neill. The list goes on and on and on and on. And then you still had some veterans kind of hanging around. Dave Parker was still very productive, but he was near the end. You had Buddy Bell, who was at the end. And this team needed the young players to be the leaders. And the reason I think that group was more impressive than this current group is because they had guys that were ready to be leaders, especially in Larkin and Davis. I don't think that this Reds team, when they're asking Ellie De La Cruz, does he think he'll be the leader, and he's giving you caveats as to, let's see if we're good. And I didn't read the entire text. And, when you read it as opposed to hear it, maybe it's different. So I give him the benefit of the doubt because he's had a heck of a year, and he looks like he's going to be a great player. But I don't think they have the leaders on this team like that team had. Therefore, that team brought in an uber leader in Lou Piniella, who is not going to accept anything but the best. And I think this team needs a manager like him. I think that even though Joe Madden does it a little bit different, he's proven, won a World Series with a lot of young players. Yes, some veterans sprinkled in. I think Girardi would be an excellent pick. I think he would push these younger players. Don't go south on him because of what happened in Philadelphia. He did a great job with the Yankees, and he did a really good job with the Marlins. Schumacher, he would be my leading candidate if he wasn't so young. I just feel like this team needs to get separated from somebody who's close to these players' ages now. I think that didn't work with David Bell although I think Schumacher is a far more intense guy than David Bell. Francona would be number one if you could get him. I just don't see with his health issues and the amount of money that you would pay him, on top of having to pay David Bell for 2 more years when he gave him a 3-year extension this time a year ago. So, my 3 in no particular order, even though I think Schumacher is a really good candidate, but he would fall behind for me, Girardi and Joe Madden.
Yeah, those are decent names. I am wondering what the odds are of Barry Larkin because of how vocal
None.
he was. You think zero?
None.
There's zero chance.
Look, being the manager of a Major League Baseball team, the amount of time that the coaches and the managers put in this day and age, compared, and I call it eyewash because most of it is completely that. It's eyewash. They don't need to be 8 o'clock in the afternoon. Neither do the players, but they do. And most of it's eyewash. And Joe Madden doesn't buy into that. Francona doesn't buy into that. But, it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I just can't see Larkin right now, and I could be 100% wrong. I don't talk to Barry, not because we don't talk, but just because we don't talk. I just don't see him wanting to put in that amount of time right now. And maybe I'm wrong, because I thought 2 years ago he'd be a very good candidate for this job.
Okay. What is the likelihood that there's a name out there that we just haven't identified yet? Or do you think we know who the likely candidates are at this point?
I don't think we do know. I really don't think we know. The only big name manager, big salary manager the Reds have paid under the Castellini administration, ownership group, was Dusty Baker. And even him, he was making far less than guys who had accomplished what he had accomplished in his career. They let him leave, and he goes and wins his first ever World Series, as we know, in Houston. I just don't know if the Reds are going to want to pay Francona, Girardi. Schumacher, they can probably get in there, though I think there are a lot of teams out there that are going to consider Schumacher. He's going to be the biggest name on the free agent market, like Counsell was a year ago. So whether it's Madden, Francona, Girardi, you're going to have to pay them. And as I mentioned a minute ago, Casey, they're still paying David Bell for 2 more years.
Absolutely. Can I switch gears with you really quick? Because we didn't get your thoughts on the Bengals leading into this game. We had a couple injuries, or names appear on the injury list. One being an illness with Trey Hendrickson, not good. Jamar Chase, a shoulder injury, limited, not good. What is your alarm bell going off? Are you nervous, Tom?
No. You mean about them health-wise? No. I mean, Hendrickson, a little under the weather, okay. He'll be ready to go. And Jamar Chase, look, he might have had a nicked up shoulder, whatever it might be. He's going to be fine. They're both going to be out there and ready to play. They're 2 gamers. You may not like the whole situation that's going on with Jamar Chase's contract, whichever camp you're in, it really doesn't matter. But you may not be necessarily all that happy with him. He was great last week once he had T. Higgins back. I do worry about the Bengals without Higgins around, because I think teams are just going to shut down Chase. But that's a different day and a different story and a different conversation. But no, they'll be ready to go. You worried about it?
I'm a little nervous about Trey Hendrickson being too sick to play, or just not being at 100%, because we need him to be at 100%. I think we can get by without Jamar Chase. I think that we have enough offense there to be able to move the ball against the Panthers. Now, I'd like for him to be out there, but that might not be the case. He might need a couple weeks to rest up on that shoulder, or maybe just a week. Let me rephrase that so people don't freak out, because I don't know what's going on with that shoulder. It could just be a little nick that, the new injury report system, you have to report whenever someone gets worked on with anything. So, I mean, this could just be something that, they wrote down as limited because of how much intensive work they did on his shoulder, and then come to find out that he'll still play through it anyways. But regardless, I am a little nervous. I still think that they get the win because they have to at this point. I thought last Monday they really had to get a win. They didn't really need to get a win. If they go 0-4, statistically, I think there's only one team in NFL history that ever made the playoffs going 0-4. So the odds are, in the history, the statistics really don't favor you if you go 0-4. And honestly, I would be shocked. I would be upset, disappointed with the culture of this team, just not getting up and ready for a game that they have no business being, they have no business losing to, right? They are better top to bottom roster wise. They should act like it. They should beat the Panthers. We'll see. But it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous for this game because I feel like a lot's riding on this one game, and I hate being in that position. But
well, you know what, Casey? Look, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Shame on you. Fool me once. Shame on me. Fool me twice. I'm not going to be fooled twice by this whole Bengals thing. I'm not. To even mention the Bengals in the same sentence with the word playoffs, as we sit here today, is lunacy. I don't know if their roster is better than Carolina. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was. I led myself into believing it. But I don't know if there's a worse defense that we've seen so far in the NFL this season than what we saw last Sunday. So therefore, yeah, I mean, if you just look at the quarterback and the skill position players, sure, the Bengals look a lot better. So, I mean, do I think they're going to win? I think they're going to win. I really do. I think they have to win. Otherwise, you talked about the culture. We're going to figure out what this culture thing is really all about. We've heard that word used over and over and over and over. The only culture that means anything is whether you win or lose. And we're going to find out what they're all about this week. So I apologize for the technical difficulties. That was all on my end. I wasn't sure what was going on. Casey, thank you for staying with it and getting everything on the air. And thank you for you and Luke carrying the show for the first 10 minutes or so. So we're going to come back on Monday, and that'll be at 9 a.m. So, Casey, I will see you then, and I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Okay. Sounds good, Tom. We'll see everyone later.
All right, buddy. Everybody have a great weekend. Take care. Godspeed ahead.